Good morning. We will call the meeting to order. It is 8:35. We'll do roll call.
Christy Inselman for Richard Beck.
Present.
Stacy Dupree. Michaela Owens.
Here.
Cody Homan.
Present.
Tom Laws.
Here.
Alex Yan.
Here.
Bob Callahan. Lindy Lindstrom.
Here.
Clay Tucker. Emily Bunn.
Here.
Dan Lister.
Here.
Carla Nelson.
Here.
Bree Brush. Deanna Dupuis.
Here.
Nina Schaefer. Nina, are you here? I thought I saw you a moment ago.
Yeah, sorry. That was Mousy here.
Perfect. Gotcha. Morgan Besaw.
Here.
Haley Hart. Caitlin Davison.
Here.
Andrew Glassbell.
Here.
Hannah Veal. Lee Belt.
Here.
Troy Behunin.
I'm here.
Marina Lundy.
Here.
Daryl Romine.
Here.
Greg Bergman.
I'm here.
Caleb Hood. Brian McClure.
Here.
Jason Van Gilder.
Present.
Crystal Craig.
Here.
Clemente Salinas.
Here.
Mark Stoyer. Rob Hartsock.
Here.
Matt Qualls. Cindy Tinker for Sean Nickel. Cindy, are you there? I thought I saw you a little bit earlier. Chelsea Johnson. Bud Corbis. Al Hoffer. Crystal Rogers. Joe McMullen. Alexa Reutman.
Here.
Zach Pietmeyer. Michael Toole.
Yes, I'm here.
Aaron Bogus. Isaac Josephek. Kate Dahl for Stephen Hunt.
Present.
Miranda Carson.
Present.
Curtis Lovelace.
Present.
And Cody Lund. All right. Perfect. Awesome. Madam Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move to item 2, open discussion and announcements. Does anyone have anything to discuss? All right, we will move on to item 3, the consent agenda. The only item on the consent agenda this month is to approve the May 27th, 2026 RTAC meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I can make a motion to approve the minutes.
There is a motion online. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, thank you. The minutes are approved. Crystal, was that you online that made the motion?
Yeah, Crystal Craig, City of Nampa.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, action items. Austin will tell us about recommend amendments to Communities in Motion 2050.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of RTAC, Austin Miller, Principal Planner and Planning Team Lead here at Compass. This one will be seeking your recommendation to adopt resolutions amending Communities in Motion 2050, as well as the fiscal year 2026-2032 Transportation Improvement Program, more commonly known as the TIP. Quick little overview of what I'm going to touch on today is we're going to walk you through the projects that are included in these amendments, the process that they will be going through, review some of the public comments that we have heard, and then ultimately we'll get to that recommended motion for you all at the end. So regarding the projects, we have a total of 3. The first is the I-84 mobility improvements. So this is actually already an existing project in the Transportation Improvement Program. However, we're adding $5 million for design of this project as based on Compass policy. An increase of that amount does require a formal amendment. However, as it is already an existing project, it is simply a TIP amendment, so no communities in motion associated with this project. The second project is 43rd Street in the city of Garden City. So this project is already in Communities in Motion 2050 as partially funded. So again, not an amendment needed to Communities in Motion for this one. However, we are adding this project specifically to the TIP to allow for right-of-way to move forward for the Ada County Highway District. This project was previously awarded funds through a competitive grant a few years ago for concept and design through the Ada County Highway District. Now they're getting to the right-of-way phase, and by getting this project added to the TIP, enabling that work to continue on ACHD's end. The third and final project is the Swan Falls Road Bridge. This is in the city of Kuna. So ultimately, this bridge will span Indian Creek as well as the Union Pacific Railroad down there. This project is specifically for preliminary engineering and design. Construction will remain unfunded. It is being added to both the Transportation and Improvement Program and Communities in Motion 2050. And this project was made possible by a $2.5 million Rural and Tribal Assistance Pilot Program competitive grant. So it really is a great success for the region, getting some of those extra transportation funding dollars to help us move forward with some of the identified needs in our region. As I noted while talking through each of those projects, some of them are TIP amendments only, and then the Swan Falls Road Bridge one specifically is a Communities in Motion amendment as well. Because of that, they do take slightly different processes, as the Compass Executive Committee does have the authority to make some TIP amendments. However, in the bylaws, they do not have the authority to make Communities in Motion amendments. So the I-84 mobility improvements, as well as the 43rd Street project, are before you today for recommendation. And then from here, they will actually go to the Compass Executive Committee at their July meeting. And then that'll just be a consent level item at the board for confirmation in August. Where the Swan Falls Road Bridge being Communities in Motion as well as the TIP, that one with your recommendation today will not go to the executive committee, but will be an action item for adoption at that same board meeting on August 17th. So a little bit of different processing there. However, wanted to make sure that the timelines were understood by everyone and why we have a couple different resolutions included. For all 3 of these projects, we did hold a public comment period from June 9th through June 23rd. We received a total of 9 comments. Hopefully they're posted on our website for the RTAC supplemental. Hopefully you've had a chance to go through and review all of them. I have a snippet of a couple of them here on the screen simply for reference. Ultimately, the recommended motion before you today did not change based on any of the comments we had received. With that, I'm glad to stand for any questions before we get to the recommended motion. All right.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I would move that we recommend to the Compass Executive Committee and Board of Directors to adopt the resolutions amending Communities in Motion 2050 and the 2026 to 2032 tip as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion from Alex Yan. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Troy Behunin. Any discussion? All in
Madam Chair.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Austin. We also have some information items on the agenda. So Austin will stay up to discuss the development review policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. RTAC, again, Austin Miller, Principal Planner, Planning Team Lead. This item is an informational item to share some information with you all, as well as seek some initial feedback that you may have regarding our development review policy. What I plan on walking through with this one is the Compass process that we go through, just so it sort of level setting, make sure everyone's on the same page. We can then review the current development review policy as it stands today, look at the development review checklist template and the component parts to that. And then ultimately our hope is to get this updated with Communities in Motion 2055, as the current iteration is based on Communities in Motion 2050. So as we're updating the long-range transportation plan, we want to make sure that this process is being updated as well. So taking a look at what that timeline looks like, we'll get to at the end. Ultimately, the reason behind Compass's development review policy is to help align local planning with regional planning. So we know you all at your agencies are doing a tremendous amount of work. Your development services staff are very busy. We get to see that in our development monitoring reports each year. So to be able to have the regional perspective as part of those conversations while reviewing the growth within the region is really what we hope to provide. And we do that in a couple different ways. So the Compass process, we are constantly tracking entitlement data. And this entitlement data, one, we can share back out with you all through things like once it gets to building permit, our development monitoring report. We also have an entire entitlements layer on our open data site. And we ultimately use that data, hopefully you are as well, for things such as our demographic forecasts and our future planning. So a few years ago when we went and set that vision for Communities in Motion 2055, looking at all of the existing entitlements already on the books, were really a foundation of where and how we expect the region to grow, at least in the short term. And then we had further conversations to build from there. However, some of you might be familiar with that. Sometimes we do a checklist as well and provide additional information specifically to development review staff from your agencies, providing that regional perspective prior to a development application going to planning and zoning or city council or whoever your decision-making body is for that project. So then it begs the question as to why are we seeing this sometimes but not others? And wanted to sort of discuss that. It's ultimately guided by the Compass Development Review Policy. So the policy outlines what applications we are tracking versus what applications are we going to provide formal comments on. It's broken out a couple different ways. Ultimately, we have application types. We don't provide comments on necessarily every type of application. We also have automatic review triggers, so we're not providing comments on every size. We're looking for more of those regionally significant type developments that could have a notable impact on the region's transportation system. So we'll look at the subdivisions, the preliminary plats, not necessarily the final plats, because we should have already commented on it by then. Conditional use permits, annexations, rezones, things like that, we're glad to take a look at, provide that regional perspective. Again, because we're looking for the bigger ones, we want 100+ residential units, 100,000+ square feet if you're looking more commercial or office space. And then for those industrial type uses, 250,000 or more is our threshold there. With that said, there is a little bit of discretion for those mixed use type applications. If you come in with 90 residential units and 85,000 square feet of office, that can still meet the mark. So we use our discretion to, in those multi-use projects, still be able to make sure we're providing valuable feedback. There is also a component of the policy that we will do a development review checklist for any development application we receive in our cities with a population of under 10,000. So understanding that some of our cities in Canyon County specifically, you're not going to get many projects of 100 homes coming in all at once, or a 250,000 square foot industrial building, but a more mid-sized project can have a very notable impact for some of those communities. And we wanted to make sure we were providing feedback and value to them as well. And then ultimately, for any development application, whether it meets these triggers or not, if you as staff or development services staff at your agency want a checklist conducted on an application you are reviewing, you have the ability to just reach out and ask us. If we can accommodate, we'll get right on it. If we can't, for whatever reason, we'll have that back and forth conversation and sort of go from there. And then board members also have the additional ability to request a development review application on a proposed development outside of their jurisdiction as well. So if you see something coming in around your neck of the woods and you want some feedback, either you or your board member does have the ability to work with us as Compass to get that regional perspective. The development review checklist itself has 3 main components, and we'll walk through each of them here momentarily. But there is the upfront checklist, which I think most people are familiar with, the complete network appendix, and then a fiscal impact analysis is conducted and summarized as well. For the current template, it starts off with just key project information right at the top. Is this project consistent with the land use type and densities that we're forecasting for in the long-range transportation plan, and therefore planning our transportation system around? We then have Communities in Motion has the 4 main goal areas of safety, economic vitality, convenience, and quality of life. We have predefined measures that show whether a development is supporting components of those goals, making sure that a proposed development, as our community is growing, these new developments are helping move the needle forward on those goal areas we have set for the region. For quality of life specific, rather than being a like green, yellow, red type check, it is more of just more information provided below. And that really ties into the complete network appendix we'll get to momentarily. And then ultimately, we do have a comments field where us as Compass staff, if there's something on the back end that we're seeing while processing, we feel is relevant to the conversation, we can provide comments there. Something that we've been trying to do lately, and I guess for further consideration as we look at changing this, is if a proposed development is proposing something that is going to change one of these measures but may not exist today, we can call that out, that while today we don't have, let's say, a park or sidewalks, for example, if a development is proposing to include those things, calling out that there is progress being made towards what could show up as a red X on the checklist, really seeing that progress and making it a little bit more visible. The next component is the complete network appendix. So this is where those check marks under quality of life, letting you know that there's more information below, For those who weren't around when we developed the complete network policy a few years back, within the complete network policy, it looks at how all of the various transportation modes are being supported in a cohesive network throughout the region. It identifies specific corridors as having certain emphases. So you can have a primary freight corridor or primary public transportation corridor with active transportation facilities being secondary, for example. And then it goes through and provides commentary that has been accepted by the Compass Board on what developments can provide to help support those desired land uses and transportation facilities along that corridor. So when a development comes in, we typically look at the nearest arterial, specifically if you're taking access to an arterial, provide information as to what are the primary and secondary uses identified in that complete network policy, and then giving additional comments consistent with that policy that can hopefully help inform the development application before us all. Lastly, we have the fiscal impact analysis. So a few years back, the fiscal impact tool was created. Every couple of years, we're pulling in budgetary information from your member agencies and then looking at how a proposed development is likely going to impact budgets. So with capital projects, are there additional roadway projects associated with growth in this area that are going to be needed? How does that impact budgets moving forward? Are we planning for it? Are we not? Providing a little bit of that context. It does also just look at operational expenses and maintenance. All of that is included in this. We will conduct that analysis and provide a summary of the findings in our development review checklist, and it'll provide it for the city, county, highway district, if applicable, as well as the school district, and then a combined total for how is it impacting the budget on the region as a whole. What we're thinking for timeline is today is really just kicking this off, making sure everyone's familiar that this is a process that Compass has and a service that we provide to our member agencies that we are hoping to get updated. Over the next couple months, we'll be working internally as staff as well as reaching out to some of you all or your development services teams, specifically working through our demographic advisory work group to look at where is the opportunities for improvement, potential change to the checklist in this process. Hope to bring that back before you all as RTAC in September for an initial draft review. We'll then take that same item to the board at their October meeting, take the feedback we received from you all and from the Compass board, get that incorporated, return in November seeking a recommendation, and then that'll ultimately make it to the board for action in December. And with that, I'm glad to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Austin. Are there any questions? All right, we'll move on to item 5B, discuss revisions to the rural prioritization process.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This is an item to really, I need a lot of discussion from you today, so get ready for that. This is on the revisions to the rural prioritization process. I think I'm behind here. Let's see. There we go. To introduce myself, I am Tony Tisdale. I'm the team lead for resource development, and that is my team is trying to pull in as much resources into the region as possible to fill the needs that you have for transportation. So today we'll do an overview of the rural prioritization process and why we update it. Review of the current process. It's a little bit convoluted. We'll go through the different steps. And I know if you're in the urban area, you've probably never seen this side of the process before. We have a lot of nuances with this program. And then I want to open it up to some of the possibilities to move forward with updating this process. And then I definitely look forward to discussion with you about this. And then depending on how this conversation goes, it could be possible that our work group meeting could be delayed or rescheduled. So let's get into it. So the reason that we prioritize rural projects is mainly these are the rural projects that the Local Highway Technical Assistance Council, known as LTAC, they have additional application points for certain programs. For the Surface Transportation Block Grant Rural, the Local Rural Highway Improvement Program for construction, signs, planning, and federal aid match. If a project or agencies go through a regional prioritization process, you can get up to 10 points for the top 3 regional projects in each category. So it may not sound like a lot of points there, but it could get you right over that line for funding or not. And so it is kind of a good opportunity to get those extra points on the rural applications. We have 2 new members back in August of 2012, we were going through a certification review. And at that time, we were already planning for all of Ada and Canyon counties. And during the certification review, it was suggested that because we're already really planning for the entirety of the counties, that we expand our planning area boundary to include all of Ada and Canyon counties. And so that's what we did in 2012. So in August, we developed this rural prioritization process. We wanted to give those rural members of our area some benefit to getting those extra points in the process. We've now added Boise County joined Compass in December of 2024, and Elmore County joined Compass in April of 2026. Last year, the board did approve a process for Boise County to participate in the existing process. Timing was a bit short, and Boise County ended up not participating in that particular one. But we did want to update the process, either completely rehaul it, look at it differently, however it needs to happen to include these 2 new areas within our Compass membership. And so that's where we are now. I wanted to explain a little bit about our current process. As I said, it's a little convoluted, but we'll go through. It's worked really well. This is probably the most collaborative process that I've seen, and these members have worked so well together and really gone through the process to prioritize their projects and been very, I guess, good to each other. It's a kind of a weird way to explain it. But this is really one of my favorite processes because they work together so well. So we have slots, rotation, and discussion in this process. And by slots, that's basically a partnership with 2 different agencies only in this process. It doesn't mean they're going to partner on every project. It just means that during this process, they're a partner. So for instance, Greenleaf and ACHD since 2012 have been partners in this process. And I'll explain what that means in just a little bit. But when we go beyond the slots, there is a rotational schedule. We did this, we're really just a draw of the hat on who got to go first. We made sure that there was a kind of a dispersion between the different categories so that not one agency or one of the other partner agencies in the slots was able to go first on all of these. Like I said, these started in 2012. As projects get funded, that agency falls to the bottom of the list. And we have had, you can see in your packet, there's a big colorful chart there. Those are the ones that have been funded, and it shows what year they were funded. So we track that very closely. We get on this rotational schedule, and there's a lot of nuances between how applications are accepted through LTAC, but this basically gives you the idea of how we came up with who gets to go first. Keep in mind, a lot of these projects, especially the LRIP program, it's only $100,000, which isn't a whole lot for a transportation project, but it makes a big difference for these rural areas. The Surface Transportation Block Grant Rural is a project anywhere from $2 to $5 million. Those only fund a handful every 2 years. So it's a pretty competitive process. Once we get through the rotation, and then it goes to discussion. So even though we have a rotation Moving forward, it's really based on that final discussion. Even if we have a number one slot project, if number three comes in and through discussion, they're more ready to go, or they have an opportunity to move forward faster, it may be that they agree to moving number three to number one. So it really just depends on discussion. Also keep in mind, a lot of these projects are very, very similar. And so scoring them, they would all have about the same score. And so it was really not an option to score these projects, at least at the time. It may be different now. So how would that actually look? This list would be twice as long, but this gives you like the first round of a project. So say if we were looking at a project and slot number 5 is Golden Gate and Wilder, they would share the slot. So we would say, Golden Gate, do you have a project? They say yes, we'd skip it. The next one is Wilder, we'd skip them. So slot 3 would be Notice. Notice didn't have a project for this one. Highway District 4 did. And so they would, it would pass over Notice into Highway District 4 because they shared that slot. Then it would go to ACHD and Greenleaf. Neither of them would have a project. Then Melba has a project. They would end up number 3 in the initial rank. It would skip Nampa Highway District. Notice Parma Highway District has a project, but they chose in this case to concede their priority to their partner Parma because they felt like their project had a higher need at the time. Keep in mind, all of these projects, only the top 3 get additional points. 10 projects could actually apply. They just wouldn't get the additional points. So through discussion, possibly there was an ag priority for the Melba area and they were able to, maybe they had a partner in funding and so they were able to get that funded quickly. And so through this discussion, number 3 and number 1 switch places. This is kind of how it works. The 10 points, it's really based on a little bit more 0 to 10. It's based on having this process, sharing resources, having letters of support. So it's not a clear 10 points. I'm not really sure how LTEC divides 0 to 10, but theoretically you could get 5, 8, and 10 for these projects. 10 points could put you over that funding line. So this could make a big difference for that Melba project and possibly even the Highway District 4 or Golden Gate projects as well. So some of the nuances, you would think this would be really super simple to add Boise County and Elmore County. It gets a little more complicated. Canyon County in the current process is a Compass member, but it has no roadway jurisdiction. So because it represents the entire county, we do have 3 highway districts which are not Compass members, but they are allowed to participate because Canyon County does pay membership dues for the entirety of the county. And so we do allow those highway districts to participate and encourage them to as a non-member because it still brings money and projects to our region and helps the transportation system. So here's where I need your help with discussing Boise and Elmore counties. So Boise County does have roadway jurisdiction. So they're very similar to the cities and highway districts that we have moving forward. Elmore County does not have roadway jurisdiction. So they wouldn't really benefit from having points because they wouldn't be applying for projects. And so my question to you is, do we include the cities and highway districts for Boise and Elmore counties, even though they're not members? And I will show you next what that would look like. This is all new to us. We're growing into a bigger area. But is that even comparable? If we just added Boise and Elmore counties to our project, our process, that would really expand to 4 counties, and even plus that, it's like 9 or 8 additional agencies to move forward. Other agencies in the state are probably using 1 county. And so the points are kind of watered down at that point. So we want to make it comparable. One option is maybe develop a plan for our process for Boise and Elmore counties, for just the counties, maybe include the other roadway jurisdictions, but include that as a rural region outside of the planning area for Compass. So we would have an urban planning area boundary, but then we also have rural areas that are outside the planning area boundary. So here's what it looks like in Boise County. Boise County does have roadway jurisdiction. The city of Idaho City and Horseshoe Bend also have roadway jurisdiction, and there are no highway districts within the county. I think that's correct. Elmore County does not have roadway jurisdictions, but they do have 3 highway districts and 2 cities that have roadway jurisdiction. And so going into that, it would allow those agencies to participate in this process if they wanted to. They wouldn't be required to. All of this is optional, but it does give additional points. So what that,
Question, would Mountain Home be large enough that it wouldn't be a rural city of Mountain Home?
no. They're not over, well, that is a good question. I need to look at that. Good question. If they're over 5,000, it would be too big. So it's possible that Mountain Home is bigger than 5,000. I don't know the answer to that. Do we have anybody from Elmore County? Or Mountain Home would not be eligible. That is I did not go there, so good question. So strike Mountain Home. They would not be eligible for this. So what would that look like? This is just an example of what it could look like if we did the same type of process. We would still have 2 partners with slots. Some of the partnerships, I was talking to Lindy a little bit earlier, some of the partnership, Horseshoe Bend and Atlanta Highway District, a little odd partnerships are way on opposite sides, but in order for the others to make more sense, it kind of ends up with one that's not necessarily fitting, and maybe we leave Horseshoe Bend a slot 2 and move Atlanta to the Mountain Home Highway District slot. Anyway, this is just an example of what it could look like. We may continue to grow, so we may be adjusting this in the future as well. But that's kind of what I want us to talk about, and then we'll come back to the timeline in just a minute. So let's go back to where we are here, and what do y'all think makes sense? Add them to just Boise County, Elmore County? Do we keep it consistent with how we're treating Canyon County?
So the proposal would be that these would be a kind of its own competition within Compass. There'd be a Compass East and a Compass West, and the Compass West would stay the same. And then these 2 counties would kind of get to do their own thing.
That's kind of where I'm leaning,
Okay.
just for the competitiveness of it. I mean, because we're adding a lot of additional agencies. So yes, I'm kind of looking at 2 processes, the more rural area and the.
And that's acceptable to LTAC?
Yes, I've talked to LTAC, and they are actually reviewing how these they call it multi-jurisdictional priorities is working. And some of it is, quite frankly, I think some of the rural areas are playing the system a little bit. And so they're trying to rework how this is done. But I was talking to Layla, and she said that it sounds like the process that we have is what they intended from the beginning, although they are reworking it and it's in a draft right now. So I haven't actually seen what's been proposed to help clean up that language, but this is the intent of what they wanted, was for regions to be talking amongst themselves, seeing where they can work together, seeing where they can support each other. This is the intent of what they were looking at.
If that's the case, can we have you just work with all the people on the screen there and whatever they want to do? I don't know that the rest of us in Compass West would have a lot of vested interest in sorting things out between Compass East members.
Sure. And Lindy, we're going to probably lean kind of heavy. We were expecting a member from Elmore County, but I don't think she made it. So.
Yeah, I think what he said makes complete sense to me. He asked my question if we were going to be in the same group as everybody else, where it would be less odds for them if we joined, which nobody would want. So yeah, I think that if it was just Elmore and Boise for that part, makes sense to me.
Okay. And what does the group think about allowing non-members to participate. Is that acceptable? Is that encouraged?
Madam Chair, this is Tom.
Go ahead, Tom.
I think I can speak for the group. I participated this in a few of the iterations now. That being said, ACHD's only applied once, but I really like this approach. I'm sure it seemed very confusing when Tony went over it, but it is working, and we really do have some great conversation. That being said, I have concern about adding all these members, and it's primarily because I feel like this is an opportunity for Compass to say, hey, if you want to play ball, you should become a member. And you get all these host of benefits, including getting on our list to help support you with these LTAC applications. And so it seems like if we just go ahead and allow Idaho City, Horseshoe Bend, the highway districts in, it's kind of like they're getting a free pass, where it would be great to have them at the table formally. And I think that was the original intent when we brought on Boise and Elmore County, was to really have true, full, comprehensive collaboration like we see with Canyon County and Ada County today.
Thank you, Tom. I saw another hand up online.
Yeah, Madam Chair, it's Crystal.
Go ahead,
with
Crystal.
Tampa. Tony, so I've been noticing the slots are grouped somewhat based on location. Why is the priority based? So like notice Parma Highway District and Parma are a very good example. They both say the word Parma in it, right? For the people that don't know where notice Parma is. But like in Canyon County on these listed right here, Parma is the largest city and notice Parma is the smallest highway district. Wouldn't it make more sense to like group things based on similar populations or similar lane miles? I feel like in that very example, we're having a small highway district compete against a larger city, if you want to call it larger. Parma's got like 2,200 people, so it's not giant by any means. But has it been explored looking, instead of based on like region and where they're at, looking at similar populations or similar number of lane miles? Because then we're comparing the number of crashes a little bit more accurately, or even their base budgets are going to be more similar. So like the struggles that they are having as an agency, I feel like would be more comparable for fairness. Like what was the idea to make it just regional? Because that would change the Elmore County and Boise County conversation too.
So when this was first developed in 2012, I think the reason that most of these got kind of partnered together as they are is because, for instance, Nampa Highway District has worked with Melba to, they included Melba in their transportation plan at one point. So, so they have done some partnerships, actual partnerships in the past. That didn't mean they had to move forward with partnerships, but that was kind of where it started. Was some of these it didn't make, some of them kind of like we talked about with Boise and Elmore, there was a few that were kind of outliers that didn't really fit and got like ACHT and Greenleaf. It's been really interesting. Most of the time, the bigger agencies step aside and let the smaller agencies go forward, just because they know that funding is so short for them. And that's been pretty much a trend throughout the 14 years that we've been doing this. But, and then your second question was about?
It was all geared on the same thing, on why we're choosing like a big and a small together instead of like two equal sizes. And that's kind of where I was coming at initially, is I didn't want like the larger agency, they're going to score higher on a lot of things already, because more people means more crashes if all of our roadways are very, very similar. So also more people equals more funding and more opportunities for, finding other grants and things like that.
Correct. And keep in mind, these are pretty small opportunities. It's $100,000 for the most part. Planning is 30,000, signs, that sort of thing. So the amounts of money are small, but these do make big difference. And once a project is funded, that agency goes to the bottom of the list. So there's still opportunity to come up in future years. But I don't know how these agencies are going to work with each other, but it gives them the opportunity to start that collaborative process.
Go ahead, Jason.
And we're not trying to fix the existing process. That seems like something that's working well and we'll let continue on. But again, I think we let maybe even these two counties partner up and I could see the advantage of a regional slot, which seems like what you're trying to get to, but we could let them figure out who gets along with who over there when you put this all together.
Maybe that's the way it goes, is that maybe they already have relationships and that starts working better. But okay, well, this gives me some direction. So I guess good news for the Ada and Canyon process. We'll move forward with the same timeline. We will try to come back to RTAC in July to present an updated version with Boise and Elmore counties. I don't know, with reaching out to all of those agencies, we can get it done that quickly. So it may be delayed, but we'll try to do that. The reason we want to get it to the August board meeting because we need to have the process in place for a resolution in October. So kind of working backwards, August is when we need to have something started, but we'll work with Boise County, Elmore County, see what we can get started and how much we can get written in time for July.
Thank you, Tony. I think there was one more question online.
Sorry.
That's okay. Madam Chair, it's Alexa. I had a quick question, follow up from Tom's kind of comment. And Tony, what kind of conversations happen around like CIM vision in these like slot conversations? Because kind of based off of Tom's comment, I'm curious as into what these two new members have visioned, transportation wise for their communities, and does that play a role in these conversations?
Do you want to help with that one?
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of RTAC, this is Austin again. So Boise and Elmore County specifically, while they are Compass member agencies, and we're going through this process to make sure we're supporting them in that way, being outside of the metropolitan planning area, they are not included in Communities in Motion 2055 and the vision associated with that. So we're glad to continue to work with them. However, it'll be outside of that Communities in Motion lens on what their transportation system is they're hoping for. And we're honestly looking forward to having some of those conversations and understanding their needs better, and this process will help us do so.
Thank you.
And Alexa, to add to that just a little bit, most of these LRIP projects especially are maintenance projects. They will be chip seals or possibly part of a rebuild. But surface transportation block grant is a larger dollar amount. It's still normally for a rebuild rather than a new facility. So maintenance is always going to be a high priority for any agency that's doing roadways. So that fits within priorities.
Thank you, Tony. I have a question as well. For the Canyon County slots, have they shown any interest in reorganizing their slots, or is their process just staying exactly as is?
They haven't, but we are planning to meet in early August. So I can bring that up to that group. I mean, several of you are in attendance today. So if there's any desire to change that, definitely could be requested, but it has not been brought up in the past. So
thank you. And then my only other comment is having non-member agencies participate in the process. I don't share the same concerns that have maybe been brought up as working at an agency that was once a non-member agency. I was still able to collaborate with Compass. I did not get the full Compass benefits that come with being a member, but it definitely opened, especially West Ada, up to seeing the benefits that come from being a member. So I think bringing in non-member agencies and still having them have a small seat at the table does help in the overall picture, and maybe it will get them to the table in the future. Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much.
All right. And with that, we'll move on to item 6. There's 2 status reports in your packet on page 22 and 27. Our next meeting will be July 22nd, 2026. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
A second. All right. Any discussion? All in favor?